Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be doing a deck profile for another EX Pokemon. This time we're going to be doing it on Miraidon EX featuring Ampharos EX. These cards do have a lot of synergy simply because Miraidon can search for two basic lightning type Pokemon, put them directly on your bench, which is going to be really good for finding multiple Mareeps that can then evolve into Flaaffys to start accelerating energy to your board. And then the Flaaffys can evolve into the Ampharos EX, which hit for big damage. Yeah, that's basically the idea of the deck. So we'll just get right into it. Starting off with 3 copies of Ampharos EX, or not Ampharos EX, Miraidon EX. This is because the ability, like I mentioned, tandem unit that says once in your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 basic lightning type Pokemon, put them directly into your bench, and then shuffle your deck. Is really good for consistency. It's going to allow us to find multiple Mareeps on turn 1. If we just get a single Miraidon, we can use this ability to find 2 Mareeps directly, put them right on the bench, which is going to be really nice. So we can start establishing those Flaaffys as quickly and efficiently as possible, start accelerating energies into play to power up our attackers. Speaking of attackers, Miraidon EX's attack isn't actually that bad. For 2 lightning and a constant energy, we have the Photon Blaster, dealing a nice 220 damage, and during your next turn, this Pokemon can attack. And 220 is actually not a bad number. It's at least so far, it's looking like that most basic EXs are going to be that 220 mark or lower. We do have Miraidon EX, which does 230 HP. But other than that, all the basic EXs we've seen so far do have less than 220, or equal to or less than 220 HP. This can also put a pretty solid hit into those Stage 1 EXs, and Stage 2 EXs you can hopefully 2-shot with this. And yeah, that is the Miraidon. Pretty good card. The only reason we're playing 3 of them is because we want to be able to find them, at least one of them on turn 1, so we can get out those multiple Mareeps, like I was mentioning. And then speaking of Mareeps, the next card we have are Mareeps, 4 copies of them. And this is going to be the new one. And this does have a single retreat cost, which is important because we do have a stadium card that will decrease our retreat by 1. So having the Mareeps that do have the 1 retreat cost is going to help us with that. But the attack's not too great, honestly. Static for a single lightning energy dealing 10 damage, and a Elect Ball for a lightning and 2 colorless dealing 40 damage. Not that great. But I think this is the optimal Mareep because of the retreat cost. Then we have the Flaaffys, which is going to be the backbone of the deck, obviously with the Dynamotor ability that allows you to, once your turn, attach a lightning energy card from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. This will allow you to power up all your attackers like Miraidon, like Ampharos EX, Ampharos EX and the Regieleki. And yeah, it's just super solid card. Obviously, you're going to be able to get a bunch of Mareeps and play on turn 1 because of that tandem unit's ability on the Miraidon. And then Ampharos EX, of course, 2 copies of it. The reason we're not running more is because we still need to keep some Flaaffys around sometimes to evolve, or to keep getting our energies in play. We can't evolve every single one into an Ampharos EX or else we don't have any energy acceleration left. So only 2 copies of it, but it is a super solid attacker. The 1 energy for the Elect Ball dealing 60 damage, which actually isn't too bad. If you do hit into a Stage 1 EX with the Miraidon EX, dealing 220 damage, a single attachment with Elect Ball will do that 60 damage. That will look to be knocking that, at least it looks like right now, will be knocking out the Stage 1 EXs. And then we have the Lightning Tail for lightning and 2 colorless, dealing 140 damage. And you may discard 2 energy from this Pokemon, and if you do, you do an additional 100 damage. So you hit 240, which is going to be really nice. For example, if you hit into like a Magazine EX with the Elect Ball dealing 60 damage, and then they hit you with the Pulse Launcher that deals 220 damage and then 30 to itself, then you can just KO them with Lightning Tail, dealing 240, because 240 plus 60 and then plus the 30 they did to themselves with the attack, the second attack. I literally just said it, but I can't remember it now. Yeah, this is just a super solid attacker. It also KOs the basic Pokemon EX, like the Miraidon, the Koraidon, all the ones we've seen so far. Then we have some consistency Pokemon, 2 copies of Mew, which does have the Mysterious Tail ability. And this is looking to be almost a staple in a lot of these post-rotation EX decks, because the consistency it gives to your deck if you open it or just have it in the active at any point of the game is going to be really nice, especially in this deck where you want to get energy in the discard pile. Mew is going to help us find those Ultra Balls. our level balls, get out our Flaaffies, things like that. Then we have one additional attacker, and that is Regieleki from Evolving Skies, which has the Terra Spark attack, dealing 120 damage for 2 lightning and colorless. And then you also have to discard all lightning energy from it, but then you're able to smite 40 damage to 2 benched Pokemon, which is going to be nice dealing once again with the stage 2s. If you use Terra Spark, hit 2 stage 1 EXs or Pokemon that will evolve into stage 1 EXs for that 40 damage, then the Ampharos will be able to do that additional 240 to knock them out. And yeah, then we have 2 other consistency Pokemon, 1 copy of Radiant Greninja, which is really, really good because we want to get energy and discard power for our Flaaffy, and 1 copy of Lumineon V because it is a consistency Pokemon. We don't have many basic consistency Pokemon in this format. We're playing basically the only ones. Greninja, Lumineon, and Mew are the best ones that are basic. Then we have our supporters, which are going to be looking pretty similar if you saw my Arcanine EX deck profile. Looking pretty similar, 4 Research and then 4 Judge. And that's because basically the idea is that we want max consistency in our deck, and we want to have the ability to try and judge our opponent out of games because consistency is not as high in this format. So that's the idea behind the 4 Judge and 4 Research. Then we have 2 copies of Boss, which is pretty makes sense because you want to be able to gust things. We have the Lumineon to directly search it out. And then we have a couple bonus supporters. 1 copy of Cheryl because the Elect Ball does cost 1 energy. If we just attach Elect Ball to hit you, because you go 330 HP, it's very unlikely your Ampharos EX gets knocked down in 1 hit, unless it's being hit for weakness. You Cheryl, you attach again, you hit for that 160 damage with the Elect Ball again. And then just a couple Flaaffies later, and you're going to be dealing at 240, and then plus that 120 you did with the 2 Elect Balls, you're going to be knocking out the stage 2s. And that's kind of our only shot, usually, I think, against the stage 2s, is that our damage cap in this deck is pretty fixed. We're fixed like the 220, 240 mark, which is pretty unfortunate because, yeah, this deck's going to have a pretty hard time dealing with the opposing stage 2 EXs, but the stage 1 and basic EXs this deck will have a heyday against. So that is the advantage of that. And 1 copy of Raihan as well for a little bit more energy acceleration in case we need it, and also allowing us to search our deck out of it, or search a card out of our deck is going to be really, really helpful. Again, consistency items, 4 copies of Ultra Ball, because finding our Pokemon is important. It's going to find Miraidon. We really want to get a Miraidon down on turn 1 to search out those Mareeps. But it also can discard 2 cards from your hand, which is helpful when getting energy discard pile for the Flaaffy Dynamotor. Then we have 3 copies of Level Ball and 1 copy of Capturing Aroma. With this, we have the 1 Capturing Aroma, 3 Level Ball split. And that's simply because the Capturing Aroma, if you do hit the tails on it, can be another out to Miraidon turn 1. If you do hit the head, it's great. You get to search your deck for a Flaaffy or Ampharos. There's a lot of stage 1 and stage 2 Pokemon, or evolution Pokemon you want to find in this deck. But there's also a bunch of basic ones you want to find. So this Capturing Aroma fits into strategy really, really well. Then we have 3 copies of Switch, so we can switch out of our Muse. And then we have 2 copies of Rare Candy. The reason we're not playing 4 Rare Candy is because we still need to keep some Flaaffies to evolve, or to be evolved into to accelerate energy to our field. So we don't always want to be Rare Candying our Mareeps all the time. We usually want to be evolving at least a couple into Flaaffies. But we do still have those 2 copies of the Rare Candy in case we want to get out an aggressive Ampharos EX. And then 2 copies of Trekking Shoes, which is going to be a little bit more consistency added to our deck. Then we have some stadiums, 3 copies of Beach Court, which is a new stadium card that's pretty solid. It says the retreat cost of each basic Pokemon in play is colorless less, which basically is here. So we can switch our Muse out. Like I mentioned, it's the optimal. So we can have the optimal Mareep. And yeah, and it's going to be really, really powerful with our Dynamotor. Then we have 1 copy of Stormy Mountains, finally, for the stadiums. And this is just, once again, another out to the Miraidon turn 1. We really want to get that turn 1 Miraidon. Then we have some energies. This is going to be only basic line energies. We do have 11 copies of it in the deck. And yeah, that's going to be the Ampharos EX Miraidon deck. Pretty solid deck. Like I mentioned before, this deck does have a kind of tough time into those opposing stage 2s just because our damage cap is pretty bad when it comes to the high 300 or the low 300 mark. But our deck is going to have an amazing time into those basic and stage 1s, which is, I think, the reason that you're probably going to be playing this deck at any point is because you're such a efficient deck at knocking out those basic and stage 1 EXs. And that's going to do it for the video, guys. If you guys liked it, don't forget to leave a like. If you guys want to see more, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.